Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. When you do dungeons in Warcraft Rumble, before each boss you are given an option to choose one of 3 relics that will enhance your army for the remainder of the run. But sometimes it can be difficult to decide, okay, which relic should I pick, which one of these are actually good. So in this video, I'm going to present you a tier list for relics in dungeons. There are many relics, there are around 60 relics in the game, so there's quite a lot to pick from. But with some advice, you can pick the right one. So what makes a good relic? A good relic is something that activates often and has a significant effect when it's activated. So if we, for example, compare relics like Stormwind Commendation, deploying an Alliance mini also summons a footman at your base. Well, if you build your deck with many Alliance minis, you can summon a lot of footmans, and each footman is worth more than 1 gold, so that's pretty good value. Playing a mini, get 1 gold for free. Or if we compare that to something like a rich purple silk shirt, which is a bad relic, your mini is costing 4 or 5 gold deployed with a shield that absorbs the first hit against them. So the first hit can potentially be very small, and it's only for the expensive minis, they are difficult to play very often. Yeah, as you can see, you won't get a lot of value out of that. Note that the relics for a dungeon, they change when you enter a new difficulty, so you successfully clear a dungeon, you get new difficulty, new relics, and also once per day. At the daily reset. When your quests reset, so do your relics. So if you have bad relics, then you can wait until the next day and see if any better relics come up. There are currently no other ways to reset your relics in a dungeon. But this means that if you see something that you like in a dungeon, hey, like Stormwind Commendation, then if you fail, you can build your team again. You can build your team with some more Alliance minis, for example, for this case, to make even more use of the Stormwind Commendation, and then go again, and that relic will still be there. So sometimes you may want to change your team based on the relics that you're being offered for the next run, if you don't pass it on the first try. So, what are the good relics? What are relics that we're changing your team for? Let's take a look. And in tier S, the absolutely game-changing relics, I have 4 of the 5 commendations. Not the Blackrock one. Not the Blackrock one, but all the others. Deploying Horde mini summons a Grunt. Deploying Alliance mini summons a Footman. Deploying a Beast mini summons 2 Raptors. Deploying an Undead mini summons 2 Skeleton Mages. All of these are totally bonkers. The additional value that you get from all of those minis, you can just overwhelm so many of the challenges. So these are the ones that are worth sometimes even changing your comp over, because sometimes like you might go into an Alliance dungeon with only 2 Alliance minis. But if you fail to complete that and you were offered Commendation, then yeah, you could make another comp, add a couple of more Alliance minis, get that much more footmen, and then just roll over it. So these are the best relics in the game. However, they are by no means necessary to succeed. There are other good relics out there too. Then we have tier A relics. Tier A relics are almost always strong. Here we have the Shadowforge City Commendation. Deploying a Blackrock mini also summons 2 Whelp eggs at your base. Why is this worse than the other commendations? Well, because Whelp eggs don't actually do anything. They can be good if your base is under attack. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of Whelp eggs and a lot of whelps. Potentially you might sometimes even get a nice little swarm of whelps. But much of the time also those eggs are just going to sit there, and you end up in a draw because you don't have pressure, because the eggs don't do anything. So yeah, Whelp eggs a little bit more situational, but still potentially a lot of value. Unstable Concoction. Unstable Concoction is my go-to. It's something that's offered quite often, and it's super strong actually. On death, your minis explode, damaging nearby enemies and poisoning them. So think about how often does it activate? Well, you're going to play a lot of minis. Yeah, that's what the game's all about. So it's going to activate a lot. How good is the effect? Well, poison effect deals some damage, and it stacks. So the more minis you have, the more poison there's going to be, and that poison is going to kill a lot of stuff. So that's just wonderful. Then we have Band of the Protector. Tank minis cost 1 less, but no less than 1. Why Band of the Protector? You're quite often going to have 2 tanks in your team. If you have 2 tanks in your team, that's already 2 cost reductions. That's more than most things only give you 1 cost reduction. And Band of the Protector is something that is typically active already whenever you go in. Obviously, if you only have 1 tank mini in your team, then Band of the Protector is not worth it. But in a generic team composition, Band of the Protector is typically one of the biggest discount relics that you can get, and therefore really, really strong. Then we have Howling Warband. On death, your minis grant bloodlust to nearby allies. Similar to Unstable Concoction. Do you have minis? Yes. Are they going to die? Yes. Are they going to have effects? Yes. However, bloodlust to nearby allies is not as reliable as poisoning, because sometimes you don't have nearby allies, and sometimes you just don't benefit from it as much, but typically Howling Weapon is also an excellent choice. Then there's Arcane Crystal. Elemental minis deal double damage, but gain vulnerability. This depends a little bit. If you have your tank is an elemental mini, then that might be bad, but if your elemental minis are like pyromancers, for example, then boom, that's going to be so much damage. Double damage is insane. Vulnerability on your backline minis doesn't matter. That's just awesome. And then we have the various Shroud Relics. Your elemental minis gain stealth, your flying minis gain stealth. Obviously, these are dependent on whether those minis are actually going to be useful, whether you have minis like, sometimes I've been offered stealth on my Defias Bandits. Yeah, Defias Bandits already have stealth, like, okay, then that doesn't work. But in the vast majority of cases, you get stealth Harpies, you get stealth Pyromancers. These are just totally bonkers. They allow your mini to get into action, get in the first shot. They really change the way the game plays out. And finally, there's Leeching Poison. Your melee minis gain lifesteal. Your tanks typically are melee minis. They gain lifesteal. They survive that much longer. That's going to be just wonderful. So this would be my list of tier A relics. Right below the commendations, well, the other 4 commendations anyway, and above all the rest, because these work with most team compositions. Almost always you're going to have a team that's going to work with these, and the effect is going to be major. It's going to be game-changing. Then we have tier B relics. These are situationally great, but they're not always awesome. Like Airborne Toxin, your flying minis gain poison. Well, if you already have poisonous harpies, then this doesn't really help. But let's say you're a free-to-play player, you're playing with harpies, your harpies don't have poison talent, they can get poison talent from this, and then they become like talented poison harpies, which is one of the best units in the game. Yeah, then that's just wonderful. Or compared to Basilisk Fang, your mini's poison lasts twice as long and deals twice as much damage. If you have those poison harpies in your team, then Basilisk Fang is going to be just super strong, because that's going to be insane amounts of damage. But these are, as you can see, a little bit more situational. You need the right minis in your team. Maybe you have the talents on them, maybe you don't have the talents. That already starts to affect your calculation. We have Auctioneer's Contract here. Each gold you mine partially heals your towers and base. There are very few ways to heal your towers and base, and sometimes your base and towers can be under a lot of pressure. This completely trivializes the third boss in Nomrakan, for example, because in that one, the base is going to take inevitable damage, so is the boss. If your base can heal, then, well, you're just going to win. So, sometimes great. We have Shadowblade. Your stealth minis deal 5 times damage when attacking from stealth. Depends on what stealth minis you have. Like, sometimes I have Maiev and Vogan, and I get this, and then I'm like, alright, let's blast. So, situationally, great. Black Whelp Tunic. Your towers, barracks, and meeting stores spawn Whelpec every 8 seconds. This suffers from the same problem that the Blackrock commendation, in that Whelpecs are not always useful. But they can still form kind of a defensive barrier around your base, so there's still something to it. Gauntlets of Determination. Your leader gains 1 level each time they are deployed. Let's say you're playing a Hogger deck, or you're playing a Talnos deck, and you get Gauntlets of Determination. Yeah, that's gonna blast. But then again, you're playing like a Murkai deck. Okay, I guess Murkai getting a level is kind of useful. I mean, it's never terrible, but there's some leaders that you really deploy a lot, and that will benefit from this a lot, and others just don't nearly as much. Go the Spearhead, your ranged minis gain poison. Poison is one of the best skills in this game. It's just remarkable, and if you gain poison, for example, on your Darkspear Troll, that's going to be great, but sometimes you don't have the ranged minis, and it needs to be a fast attacking mini. Like, ranged mini Firehammer is another one. Firehammer with poison, whoa. But then Pyromancer with poison. Well, not really, because it doesn't attack fast enough. On the other hand, Ranger's Flask can help that Pyromancer attack faster. Ranged minis attack 33% faster, so that's effective 33% DPS. And yeah, that's pretty sweet. Then we have Flashbang. Deploying an unbound mini stuns nearby enemies for 1 second. Stunning can be powerful. You need at least 2, preferably maybe like 3 unbound minis would be best for this, and not all decks have that. So again, a little situational. And same again with Gnomish Flywheel. Playing a cycle mini reduces the cost of your next non-cycle mini by 1, but never less than 1 does not stack. If you have at least 2 cycle minis in your deck, then this typically is quite a good discount and useful. If you have only 1 cycle mini, then this actually isn't good. So yeah, all of these can really help you, but they require some specific things from your deck. Sometimes you could consider putting something like changing 1 or 2 units just to make more use of these if you're really offered weak relics otherwise. But these are a little bit situational. Then we have Tier C. Tier C is like, I pick these if I must. I try to avoid picking these, but sometimes I have to. Like some of these Ages of Battle, Barbed Chain, these sort of effects where Reflective Chain as well, your Alliance minis, your Horde minis do something. Yeah, these can become stronger if you build around them, but they're still not at the level of the commendations. So if you don't have the deck already built for these, then the effect is just not great at all. Reflective Chain, I guess, I mean, Alliance minis deal damage back to attackers, and Alliance has footmen, so Alliance has a big squad unit, so there's some things about Reflective Chain, but they still require some very specific things in your deck, otherwise they're very lackluster. Then there's all the effects where you're playing your leader summons something, like Arachnid Whistle, playing a leader summons 2 Spiderlings. All of these are pretty much the same. Bone Whistle, playing a leader summons 2 Skeleton Mages. Yeah, I take that. It's nice, but it's only when I play my leader, and I might not want to play my leader all that much, so the effect is still kind of lackluster. Bloodshot Greaves, whenever you have 3 or less active minis on the field, they gain Bloodlust. If you run something really big, like let's say you have Fire Elemental Shaman combo, and then you might drop in 1 other mini, and you would have those 3 minis on the battlefield with Bloodlust. Like, there are some cases where you can make the Bloodshot Greaves work, but in many cases you just can't, especially if you're running squad minis. And there's Frost Inscription, Tainted Power Core, some defensive power for your towers, for your base. Barracks and towers apply Frost on hit. Frost slows movement speed and attack speed, so that means that your base is going to take less damage. Tainted Power Core, enemies near towers and meeting stones are poisoned every 3 seconds, so steady stream of damage. These have sometimes helped me defend. When I have been really desperate, haven't been offered many good relics, have been in a map where my base is under a lot of pressure, those have sometimes helped me out. But still nothing that I would really want to pick. Anointed Pickaxe, each gold you mine partially heals your minis. Yeah, okay, because it's each gold I mine. And that means that I'm actually going to activate that a fair bit, so that makes it a little bit better than some of the other gold mining relics. Then we have Primal Air, your elemental mini shock their attackers, damaging them. And this is typically only useful if you run Fire Elemental. But if you run Fire Elemental, then that's actually really hilarious, because then Fire Elemental is a tank that deals AoE damage and deals damage back when it's hurt. Then Primal Air is actually pretty good, but very limited in its applications. Strange Dust, squad summon 1 additional mini from another random squad. You kind of need 2 or 3 squad units to really make use of this. And it's still a little random, but sometimes it works. And I mean, deploying Defias Footmen and getting an Warzone Grunt on top of them is pretty good, so Strange Dust is sometimes usable. And same goes for Incendiary Rounds. Your ranged minis apply Burn when dealing damage. That increases their DPS, so at least it does something. And then we have Tier D, which I hardly ever, basically never pick these relics. Stuff like Band of the Arcanist, spells cost 1 less. Yeah, okay, but how many spells do I have in my deck? I usually have 1. That's not great. If I had 2 or 3, then maybe I could start considering that, but often I don't. Then deploying Unbound minis, some of the effects, +1 level to nearby allies, actually hasn't really helped me ever. Damage to nearby enemies actually hasn't helped me ever either. These taunt abilities, I haven't found use for those. Darkmoon Price Wheel has actively sabotaged my runs. Minis costing less than 3 gold cost 1 more. Minis costing more than 5 cost 1 less. Although if you get that very early, then maybe you could build around it and try to do something with it, some crazy stuff, but running your regular team, then that doesn't do anything. Stuff like Divine Parchment, deploying a leader grants a shield to nearby allies, absorbing one attack. Very low value, hard to activate, you don't play your leader that often, just no. And the same as all of this, after deploying your leader, next Blackrock mini plays cost 1 less. 1 discount from the leader, only the leader, just generally not worth it. All of these deploy your leader and some of these discounted deploy your leader, there's some kind of effect, they are kind of lackluster. Non-spell minis have half as much health and deal double damage, that includes your tanks. That could have some uses if you have very low tanking requirements in your deck, but still, I don't like that at all. Flying minis evade 1 attack, yeah, not that great. Rich Pebbles will talk about that. Your leader heals 10% health every 5 seconds. That's no troll regeneration, that's for sure, so lackluster effects. And then all of these every 3rd gold mine. That just doesn't happen enough. So I generally never pick any of these relics. To recap, you want relics that activate often and have a big effect when they activate. And that makes the best relics these that summon active units that will help you actually take down the boss. Those are followed by effects that are easy to activate and have a major effect on the game. Lots of damage, stealth effects, lots of discounts. And those are followed by effects that are situational, that can sometimes be great, but you really need to think, does this fit with what I have currently in my team? And sometimes, okay, if I really can't do this, should I bring a team that can do it with the help of these? And those are followed by relics that have minor value, but are really not that great. And finally, we have a bunch of relics that have hardly any value at all. So overall, I hope that this small guide will help you pick the right relics for your team and help you succeed in dungeons. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.